Welcome to race 2 of the Hobart Challenge, the second leg of the National Circuit of Racing for 18-foot skiffs. The absolutely crazy conditions of yesterday created havoc, as you saw, and they're back with us again today. And the start this time, pretty gentle, but don't worry, the breeze coming down in huge gusts and pretty even at the start. Prima Drink's out in the left-hand side of the picture, and here's the course they're racing. From the start-finish to the top mark, down to the wing mark, down to the bottom mark, back up to the start-finish line. That represents one lap of the course, and they're doing 2 laps of that course, and pretty soft at the start, Warwick.
Yeah, it is pretty soft, but as we saw yesterday, the breeze comes pumping down over the top of the mountains, and this will change very quickly. I think Skilled is sailing quite nicely. She likes this flat water, and head cam today is with Skilled Engineering.
This bloody chopper's stopping the wind getting to us.
Oh, hello. That's the chopper that's up there to shoot pictures, and Andrew DeVola, the skipper, saying that it's not doing them any good at all. It's creating a bit of a high pressure system there and preventing the wind come down to them, so there's a bit of a complaint on board Skilled Engineering. There's the head cam on board Andrew DeVola, the device attached to the crash helmet, and Andrew's wearing it today and dropping behind just at the moment. He's down at the bottom end of the course. They're tacking up into the wind, going as close as possible to directly into the wind. Prima Drink's currently in 6th position, and they're already around the top mark. Ella Bachet got away beautifully from the start line, and Adrian Carlin in business once again at the top mark. But nothing in this still, very, very difficult conditions. Anything can happen. Prudential rounds in 2nd position. Xerox is 3rd. Bank of New Zealand is still there. And this race is still wide open with crazy weather conditions.
Yes, and Ella got a nice start there. So the first one would beat in clear air, but Prudential has turned around and trying to take the air from Ella Bachet. Bank of New Zealand rounds in 4th. So it's Ella Bachet, Prudential, Xerox and Bank of New Zealand.
Oh, hello. Here's nearly a collision between Skilled Engineering and Prudential. Skilled Engineering still tacking up towards the top mark. Prudential coming down off the wind, and Andrew DeVola calling his crew through for attack there to get out of the road of Prudential. Who was in the right and wrong there, Warwick?
Well, Skilled was in the wrong, and they had to get out of the way of Prudential. That's just some of the rules of the road. It's basically give way to the right, and Skilled Engineering, they don't want to turn around too much in these conditions. But a nice little battle developing between the series leader Xerox and Prudential, who's trying to get back that lead.
Prudential has to keep winning in this series to stay in contention. Xerox currently 2nd, in behind them, Bank of New Zealand 3rd. They're still in pretty soft air, but the incredible thing about the racing here in Hobart is that you just never know when there's a big bullet of breeze about to pop over the mountain and drop right down on top of you and give you heaps.
And that caused a real dilemma for these crews in selecting their rigs for the race today. The breeze is up and down, even more so than the first race, and they have a selection of 3 rigs. The biggest one they obviously want for light air, and the smallest one for heavy air. And Ella Bachet now is just screaming along in flat water. All the boats have elected to go for 3rd rig, and we can see there Bank New Zealand is nearly parked, and Ella Bachet has got the hammer down and doing about 25 knots in the right direction.
And so is Prima Drinks. David Lamond having a good day just at the moment. Skilled Engineering also doing better than Bank of New Zealand, and they can be 20 feet apart and have completely different breeze strength. And at the moment, Skilled Engineering coming right up to the leaders, having rounded that top mark well behind them. The view from on board.
And things are nice and calm at the moment, but I think if that breeze comes flying over the mountain like I expect it to, things will change pretty quickly.
At the moment, Skilled Engineering with the big spinnaker up now. Wind coming over their right-hand side. Currently in 5th position and going just great. In 4th is the Bank of New Zealand. 3rd, Prima Drinks out on the right. 2nd is Prudential, and leading the race at this early stage, Ella Bachet. Back on the Derwent River, and Ella Bachet has maintained her lead in this race. Adrian Carlin has been able to handle the conditions, and she still leads as they get to the bottom end for the 2nd time. Prudential rounding in 2nd position, the breeze kicking in, coming down at a rapid rate of knots. Prima Drinks currently 3rd and going great guns, and that's their best performance to date so far. And at the moment, Ella Bachet holding out Prudential very nicely indeed. Things looking calm on board Prudential.
I hope you don't put the clappers on them, Bill, because every time you say they're going well, they have a disaster. But certainly at the moment there's no problem, but I just hope you haven't put the clappers on them, mate.
Well, yeah, I'd never do that, Warwick, you know that, and Prima Drink's going very, very nicely, although Xerox has powered down over on their right-hand side. Xerox has had a great run down with the spinnaker. They've shifted up into a gear, and they're now in 3rd position. Look at that black gust of wind coming at Ella Bachet there, she's about to get hit by plenty. Prima Drink still in plenty, coming round now. She's in 4th position, going very nicely indeed, and these guys hitting up around about 25 knots of boat speed. Must be good fun, Warwick.
Yeah, certainly is, and 25 knots doesn't sound like a lot, but I can tell you when you're standing out the end of those wings, bouncing around, it feels like doing about 120 miles an hour in a car.
Tight race. I see that Prudential now sailing higher to the wind. Both skiffs trying to sail as close as possible to directly into the wind. Prudential out on the right, managing to screw up a little bit higher into the wind and picking up Ella Bachet, grinding back. Perhaps a little bit more crew weight working for them here as these skiffs running 3rd and 4th get down towards the bottom mark for the first time.
Well, Prudential got their spinnaker down a little bit better than Ella Bachet and were able to round the mark closer to it. So in other words, they weren't going as far away from where they had to turn and got that inside running, and that helped them a great deal. The guy on Prima trying to pull that spinnaker down now, and we saw on yesterday's show that if they don't get it down, it acts like a big parachute and just drags these boats over. So this is a really worrying time and a time where they have to work very hard indeed.
Onboard skilled engineering, dropping the spinnaker. Jeremy Hampshire jumping out on the wing, getting ready for the mark rounding. If they get the timing right, they're in the tide again. Phil Reed trying to stuff that spinnaker in the bag. Up ahead, skilled engineering rounds the bottom mark in 4th position. Skilled engineering coming up to round 5th.
When you see Prima went too far as well, and Skill will get an inside running here, I believe, and take the position back.
Whoa, very, very nearly big capsize on Skilled there. They obviously got a big gust as they rounded that bottom mark, and the boys fighting for control as the breeze now kicks up again through 20-25 knots. But things a lot calmer on board Prudential. They're up there battling it out with Ella Bachet for first, and they look as though they're going just fine. Tip Top White High Five has more problems. Their skipper has broken ribs from yesterday, and they've got problems getting down towards the bottom end of the course, and they're going for another swim. Oh no, Andrew Cuddy in pain all the way. The poor lad, I feel for him. But battling it out with Prudential for first is Adrian Carlin and the team on board Ella Bachet, and Adrian has done major surgery to her skiff, and we asked her about it before today's race.
What did you actually do? Did you attack it with chainsaws or what?
Well, actually not far off because it was pretty well seat of the pants. We just took it in at the front. A lot of the other boats have a lot finer entry, and we just closed down the shoulders a little bit. And we also moved it in sideways too, so took 4 inches off the chain plates.
Without any plans, what did you do? Look down the end of your arm and off your thumb or what?
It was a bit like that. Ian Murray was the designer, and he came down and sort of supervised. And the boat builder, we just took the sides off and then glued 2 new sides back on. It sounds quite simple, but it was actually quite hard work.
And they did that surgery in an attempt to stem back the speed deficit between the old Ella Bachet and the newer boats of Xerox and Prudential. And it seems to be working quite well because this boat is very competitive.
Okay, the current positions are listed there, and as you can see, Ella Bachet now in 2nd position. Prudential is winning. Ella Bachet has a big battle to get back ahead here. Rob Brown is very determined. He has to win this event to keep up with Phil Barnett and have a chance of winning this. He's very determined. And Bank of New Zealand, back in contention.
I don't know what they're in contention for, but they're back in 6th place, Bill. But certainly they've got a lot of work to do to try and get up near the front, and they shouldn't be this far back.
Rob Brown in soft air, and all of the skiffs now starting to find some of the soft patches in this breeze, but Prudential clawing their way back into the series. If they can win the Hobart Challenge, they can get back into it and start to challenge Xerox. And at the moment, Rob Brown and Chris Harmson being a local Hobart boy, giving advice to Rob Brown pointing out where he should be going. And they're having a decent debate as to which direction to go in as they try and zigzag their way back up into the breeze and maintain their lead in this race.
And the conditions on the Derwent are taxing every single aspect of sailing. When they get to the top of the course, they have to rely on tactics, and when they get to the bottom of the course, they have to rely on survival conditions. So this is a very tough and interesting race.
Well, Warwick, Hobart has been fantastic. Prudential now changing directions, going through attack. I suspect out to their left we can see Ella Bachet coming up on the other tack, on the port tack. They're going across to cover them, but the conditions and the hospitality down here in Hobart have been fantastic. The boys, despite the fact that it's cold, windy and vicious at times, having a ball.
Well, this is a big month for Hobart for yachting, with the Sydney Hobart fleet on their way down. The 18-footers down here, this is a real carnival atmosphere. And we can see Ella Bachet in pink with Prudential in red with the breeze coming over from their starboard side, their right-hand side, and the light blue represents the rest of the fleet. But Prima, I don't know, maybe it's delayed, but they're still hanging in there, Bill. You haven't put the clappers on them yet.
No, I seem to have failed so far, Warwick, but at the moment Prima really motoring along. They seem to be sailing it flat, and David Lamont having an excellent day. And that previous picture coming from that chopper as they head up towards the start-finish line and the gate to complete one lap of this course. And currently Prima Drinks going great guns and very much in contention in the second heat of the Hobart Challenge.
And Prima certainly is hanging in there, and that's a good effort from them. They've had a lot of problems, but in the light air, you can see Prudential there getting a gust of breeze and actually accelerating away from El Abache and then stopping again. So the breeze is coming and going, it's very isolated. El Abache getting up to speed again, so it's a great battle and a tactical battle starting to develop here between El Abache and Prudential.
Scott Ramsden, the skipper of Bank of New Zealand, clawing his way back into this race. There we can see the gap back up to Xerox out on the right-hand side. And definitely Scott Ramsden earlier went out to the right-hand side of the course as they zigzagged their way back up into the breeze and sailing another excellent race. But he's got some time to make up because Prudential's got to the top mark for the second time. They lead this race by around about 20 seconds from El Abache, and Prudential look like they might have another victory in the bag. If they do, they're coming back into contention in this series. Going through attack on board Bank of New Zealand.
I think it's a little bit early to talk about who's going to win this race. There's another lap to go. The conditions are treacherous. They're changing all the time, and they're only going to take one big bullet coming over the top of those mountains and wipe out the hopes of Prudential.
Prudential has rounded the top mark. They're heading now back down towards the gate. Then they'll head down to the bottom mark. They've set their spinnaker back in soft air. Also Bank of New Zealand. My goodness me, it must be confusing for these guys. 1 minute it's up around 35, then it's nothing, and it's very, very tough indeed. Now suddenly Prudential getting a gust. Looks like Dave Slennard out on the wing there, generating the power, and here they come. Prudential on the way down, El Abache on the way down. Bank of New Zealand now up into third position on the way up, and a very tight race for first and second between Prudential and El Abache.
It is certainly a tight race, and El Abache is just performing so well. The surgery that they did to that boat is working very well in this flat water and these trying conditions. Prudential has turned, they've jibed, and they are heading out to the left-hand side of the course. El Abache has decided to keep on going out towards the right, so another tactical decision coming up here, and we'll have to see who is right and who is wrong.
Craig Ramsden, the sheet hand on board El Abache, is in charge of the tactical moves on board that vessel. They've chosen to go out to the right. Now Prudential changes directions again. She just had a jibe off camera. She's coming back and she's coming out to the right again, but I think El Abache's done a little bit better looking down on the course. She's got a bit more breeze and starting to fill in now, and the beautiful big yellow spinnaker of El Abache starting to call the tune, and things softening up on board Prudential. Not much breeze at all, and Rod Brown looking for some help from up above.
He certainly needs it right now because he's sitting in a big hole of breeze. He's tried to turn around, he's got no boat speed. When there's no wind and you turn these boats around, they just sit there like a lump of wood, and that's exactly what Prudential is doing right now, while El Abache has got the hammer down and heading for the bottom mark.
So at the halfway mark, Adrian Carlin has El Abache in the lead. And back with Prudential, and boy oh boy, are these conditions playing havoc with these competing crews. El Abache has sailed around the big hole that Prudential fell into. Adrian Carlin continuing to go hammer and tongs with the male drivers of the contingent out here, and has got herself back in the lead after sailing around the big hole that Prudential found. El Abache steaming ahead. Rob Brown now looking around and seeing if they can find some breeze and get back up there. But it was really the conditions that stopped them short then. Now they have to find the next gust and get back into the race.
Adrian Carlin's heart will be pumping at 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. Her first major victory is only about 10 minutes away, if she can keep this boat in front of Rob Brown. And I tell you what, Rob Brown is a terrible person to have behind you, but look at the gap there. She has opened up an enormous gap.
What an incredible gap. I mean, Prudential just sat there in that big hole in the breeze. She sat there for several minutes. Rob Brown was banging the deck and carrying on a tree. But look at the gust he's in now. You saw the black water around him. And here's the team on board Tip Top White High Five coming back up the course. Andrew Cuddy sailing with broken ribs against doctor's orders, but there he is. He's out there doing his best on board Tip Top White High Five. He's about 3/4 of a lap behind Prudential. There's the bottom mark in the background. Prudential getting down towards the bottom mark. They've made up some territory, getting hit by a big gust and now making up heaps of time, getting down towards the bottom mark for the final time and sailing right up to Elabashe.
Rob Brown has got to give right away to Elabashe. There's a collision coming up. Oh my God, he's going to try and jibe inside. He's done it. Now I think he was in the wrong. There's a lot of problems going on here. They've got to get that sail down. He's run over the marker. Elabashe in all sorts of trouble. They're going to capsize if they don't watch it. They're both being dragged off the course. Now it's a race to get those spinnakers down. It's all in the hands of the crews. Whoever can get that spinnaker down quicker and get it bagged in that big bag is going to round up around the mark and take the advantage.
Umpire's boat seems to have been right on hand. We saw it there as Xerox comes powering down in third position to take advantage of the squabble between those front two, but looked to me like maybe Rob Brown's got a little penalty to serve there, Warwick.
Well, depends what the judges saw. There's no protests after this sort of racing, so it's whatever the judges say goes. But Prudential got the spinnaker down a little bit quicker and was able to get up and head towards the finishing line a little bit quicker than Elabashe, but certainly the conditions here are making things change very quickly. Xerox just sitting in nowhere. This is unbelievable. The conditions are changing about every 15 seconds, from sort of no breeze to 30 knots, and that's very hard to handle.
Adrian Carlin, I think, looking around for the umpires there, but no sign of the umpires. Xerox in a big black one. There you can see the blackness on the water driving them down the course as they get down towards the bottom mark for the final time in third position and coming down at 25 knots and absolutely blasting down the course and going great guns. Maybe still a chance to get up to those front two, although they've got a big margin to make up.
That was extraordinary. In that last picture you could see that Tip Top was sitting in no breeze, and where Xerox, only about 100 metres away, was screaming along at about 25-30 knots. And if you look closely you can see the very dark water on top of the screen. That means there's more breeze coming.
It's amazing. I mean, here we see the boys on Xerox preparing themselves. They're in 25 knots. Suddenly they get hit by that black water, which has got about 35 knots, and they have to try and control it. And in goes Dave Ewings to drop that spinnaker, dropping the spinnaker nice and early before the mark. It's survival time again. Back to survival conditions in the second heat of the Hobart Challenge, and Xerox needing to make up some time because at the moment Prudential leads this race and they're getting back into contention in the total series.
Yeah, well, the breeze at the top end of the course is lightening off again, so the gap has been closed dramatically by Xerox. And certainly we can see on the right there Prudential, and on the left Elabashe.
So there is a substantial margin. Prudential has rounded the bottom mark, is back on the breeze, sailing as close as possible to directly into the wind. Elabashe in middle of picture, coming back up on starboard tack. Prudential up at the top of the picture now has cleared away after that little encounter at the bottom mark. It doesn't take much for them to get separated, and Prudential now looking really fancy to go on and win the second heat of this Hobart Challenge, and that puts her in a great position to win it.
It certainly does, and there's a lot of luck there, because Rob Brown was definitely in the wrong in that encounter, and the judges didn't see it, or they saw it a little bit differently to the way we saw it, and Rob Brown got away with murder.
Yes, well, I'm sure Adrian Carlin would 100% agree with you about that, Warwick. I'm not so sure, however, that Rob Brown would. I think you'd probably get an argument from Rob. In any case, it's all academic because Prudential is now leading comprehensively. Xerox now approaching the bottom mark, and they really have no chance of winning this race now. Rob Brown sailing back into contention in this series. Bank of New Zealand on her way back down, but she's not going to win this race either. It is Prudential's day, a big day for Rob Brown, and they are back in it. Bank of New Zealand up into fourth position. Elabashe battling it out with Prudential for first, and once again it's a trademark of all these top teams that they're always nice and cool on board. Prima drinks coming down. They had a capsize after looking fancy. Back on deck now and coming back down towards the bottom end of the course as Elabashe is on her way back up. So there's about a half a lap difference between those two, and a nice friendly wave from the boys on Prima Drinks.
It didn't look too calm to me there, Bill.
No, perhaps not so friendly, but certainly friendly on board the Prudential skiff as we see the crew. Dave Slennett, Chris Harmsen, Rob Brown congratulating each other. That's 2 out of 2 in the toughest possible conditions, and they've done extremely well so far in this series. Elabashe also a great performance to finish second in the toughest possible conditions. Adrian Carlin doing a fabulous job. So after 2 races of the Hobart Challenge, we see Prudential a clear leader, Elabashe equal with Xerox in second position, and it's a great contest. The series has opened right up now with these 2 victories by Rob Brown in the first 2 heats of the Hobart Challenge. Phil Barnett in Xerox sailed fast, but it wasn't boat speed that brought the bacon home today. It was plain and simple boat handling, and the boys on Prudential did the job. We're back tomorrow with race 3.